In this video, we're going to be creating the bearing plate, and one of the first things we're going to be doing is starting up AUTODESK Inventor. So if you are using the Nutanix system to do so, you will have to access that from the Google, and I'll show you that in a moment here. And it's the same way that you would access AutoCAD if you were using Nutanix. So you go to your window pane here and go down to Nutanix framework and then sign in there. And you likely should sign into your Google account at the same time. But Inventor is set up into about 6 different categories. So you have a part, a drawing, assembly, and a presentation. So the only thing we're going to be concerned with now are these two right here, which are the part and the drawing. So everything in Inventor starts out as a part, and it transforms itself into a 3D model, which in turn transforms into a drawing. The drawing and the part file are individual files, so they are uh, dependent upon each other, so to speak, where if you make a change to the part, it automatically updates the drawing. So in this exercise, we're going to be doing the bearing plate, uh, or the base plate that we did a couple of weeks ago in AutoCAD. So we're going to start everything out as a 2D sketch. You don't have to worry about trying to hit the drop down here to pick it. Just click on it right there, and you're going to get a work plane. So you're going to get 3 different work planes. You're going to get the XY, the YZ, and I think the XZ planes. Uh, 8 out of 10 times, I'll likely use this one. It's every once in a while I'll use that one, and seldom use that one. So I'm going to start with this one. Okay, so within this plane, what I'm going to do is actually use a rectangle. So your toolbar up here changed over. When you first started out, it was all 3D modeling tools. But when you're ready to sketch something out, it changes over to a sketch toolbar, which means that a lot of these things, they should look kind of familiar, and it should look like the ones in AutoCAD. So Autodesk kind of kept all of your symbols looking the same, so that kind of worked out. So I'm gonna start with a rectangle, and I'm gonna pick a starting point, and I'm just gonna kind of drag it out, and I'm gonna zoom, and I'm gonna make it roughly about that big. So this might be about 7 or 8 inches, but it didn't matter because what I'm gonna do is use dimensions to shape it up to the size I need it. So, oh, it wasn't even that big. So it was only almost 2 inches. So I'm gonna change this to 5, and I'm gonna do another one here. I'm gonna change this one to 5. All right, so you can pretty much make an arbitrary figure and then shape it to the size that you need it to be. And in this case, it was the rectangle, which is 5 by 5, which was the size of the base plate. So we're gonna finish the sketch by hitting the green check mark, and then we're gonna use extrude. So the toolbar that was a sketch toolbar, when I finished sketching, it went back to being a model toolbar. So now I can extrude, revolve, sweep, and so forth. Even do fillets, like you would do in AutoCAD, but actually on a 3D model. All right, so I'm gonna do extrude, and it's automatically gonna pick up the object because it's the only thing on the screen right now. Now, if it doesn't, all you gotta do is just really just click on the rectangle, and it'll do the same thing. All right, so I'm going to put in 0.25 for my distance, and it's automatically going to change. Now, I could use that, but dragging it is a little bit more difficult to get it right on the number than it is just to type the number in and then hit OK. All right, so from here, everything does start out as a 2D sketch. As I said before, I've never used a 3D sketch feature. Everything I've ever used has been a 2D sketch. So I'm going to start another 2D sketch, but I'm going to pick this surface here as my base. So rather than starting out in the middle of nowhere like I did before, this time I'm actually going to sketch what I need on this surface of this block, on this box that we just made. So I'm going to use circle, this time I'm gonna go ahead and put the number in for it, which is gonna be 3 inches of diameter. All right, so it's gonna give me a circle that's 3 inches, but it's not quite in the center where I want it. So I'm gonna use dimensions to place it where it needs to go. So I'm gonna click on the dimension. I'm gonna click the top line, and I'm gonna click the circle. And typically it'll go to the center by itself. If it doesn't, sometimes it goes to a tangent, but for the most part it'll go to the center. So I'm gonna just drag that out, click on the outside, and I'm gonna type in 2.50 for the distance, and it's gonna move it. And I'm gonna do the same thing to place it horizontally. All right, so that's gonna put my circle in the middle. I'm gonna finish the sketch, and I'm gonna go back to extrude again. But this time, rather than adding to the object, I'm actually going to use extrude to cut. And it's going to reverse. Now, if you make a mistake and you don't do this at first, what you'll have to do is put it on cut and then reverse the direction to go to the back. Because otherwise you'll be trying to cut into empty space and you'll get an error. All right, so I'm going to hit OK. All right, so next I'm going to do another sketch on the face. And this time I'm going to do 4 circles. At each one of the corners. I didn't give them any size, but I'm going to give them a size afterward. So each one of them is going to be 0.75. Now, if it moves, don't worry about it. That's something we're going to fix in a moment. It's okay if it moves. I'm pretty close on that one. All right, so now I'm going to basically do the same thing I did before. But this time, I'm going to tell it that I want the circles to be 0.75 away from the top. And 0.75 away from the outside edge. So it's going to move them over. And here I'm going to do it from the bottom. And from the side. All right, so that's all 4. And they're aligned to the corners. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit finish sketch. And I'm going to extrude. And this time I'm going to pick those 4 circles. And I'm going to put it on cut, just as I did before. And I'm going to hit OK. And that is actually it. Now, if you take a look at it and spin it around, you'll see that, well, it's not a whole lot to look at, but let's just say, for instance, you're doing that and you get lost in 3D space. The easiest thing to do is just to go right here to this little house above the view cube, click, and it'll put it back into what's called a home view. All right, so we're going to save our model. We're going to call it faceplate. to hit save. And now I'm going to start a new file. This one is going to be the drawing file that I'm going to place it on. So I'm going to start with a standard IDW. If yours said drawing, that's fine. It's the same thing. And I'm going to hit create. All right, so this gives me the sheet that I need, or somewhat. So what I'm going to do, the sheet size is actually pretty big. It's like a size D. So it really can be a size B. So what I'm going to do is edit sheet. And I'm going to change this from a D to a B. And then I'm going to hit OK. And it's going to shrink it down. All right. So now, in order to get your view onto the sheet, we're going to do base. Maybe we should have gone with a C size. It's pretty big. So let's change the sheet size to a C. Or let's try to do a portrait. See how that works out. No, portrait works out better. So we'll just leave it at a B and we'll just do a portrait. All right, I'm gonna hit OK. All right, so now, my next step, I'm going to place my dimensions on here. Well, I'm gonna place the center line first. So I'm gonna go to annotate. I'm gonna click on center mark. And I'm gonna pick each one of the circles. See an Inventor? A whole lot easier to do than what it is in AutoCAD. And then I want to use my dimension tool. Now in Inventor, there's one dimension tool that does everything. So you don't have to worry about hitting a drop down, picking different types of dimensions. The one tool in here does it all. So my intention was to line that up. All right, so now I got those two, and I'm going to do an overall from one end to the next. Or I can choose that line. I'll bring this up. So you see how it's kind of changing as I drag it along. I normally go to like the second one so they have a good enough spacing in between each one of the dimensions. All right. And I did forget one dimension. So I'm gonna take this one out. And I'm gonna go between here and here. And bring that one up. And I'm gonna touch that so it'll stay aligned. And then I'm gonna go between this one and this one. And touch that one. And do the same thing. So on the side is essentially gonna be the same thing. So I'm gonna go from here to here. I'm gonna pull that out. Then from here to here, pull that one out. And then from here to here, pull that one out, line it up, and then finally get overall height. I think that's a little bit too far. And we'll put that one in place. Now, to show you that this dimension tool does the same, works for everything, and it knows the difference between circles and lines and so forth, we're going to do a couple of diameter dimensions. So I'm going to, but it's not, we don't have to hit the drop down to tell it that. So we're going to click on dimension, select the object, and automatically it knows that that's a diameter dimension because it's a closed circle. Now when this pops up, we're going to click to the right of these little bars right here, hit there in the button, and we're going to put a notation for 4 holes. And we're going to hit OK. And then we're going to put one for this. We're going to drag that out. And we're just going to hit OK for it. All right. So now we need like a visual representation of this so we can see how thick it is, because we're not showing but one view of it. So we're going to go to place views. Then we're going to go to project it. And we're going to click on this view and drag our mouse up to the right side. So I'm going to kind of drag it out here first. It's going to be a little bit too big. So I'm going to click once, right mouse click, and then hit create. Then I'm going to double click on this view. There's two things I'm going to do. One is change the scale. So I'm going to change the scale to half so it'll fit. Then I'm going to turn the color on it, which is that third button there for style. Then I'm going to hit OK. Now I can grab it and readjust it and bring it back in. See, now that's my visual representation of this object. So down at the bottom, I'll use annotate, use the text tool, and I'm going to put a note. For material thickness. For that. So then we know how thick that this plate is. All right, so last but not least, before we export it, we're going to add our text. So we're going to top right to bottom left. Top left to bottom right. And I'm going to choose the second and the fifth button here. And I'm going to do Stockbridge High School. Intro to drafting. And hit OK. Now the good thing about this is some of the information already filled in for you, so the scale is already there. And so this is going to be base plate. And I'm going to highlight it. And I'm going to put it on 0.24. And then I'm going to make it bold so it kind of stands out. All right, now where your name is, yours will probably show something different. So instead of showing your ID number or your login, we're going to change it to where it's going to show just your the wrong thing. Just your name. We want to change it to where it shows your name. All right, so we're going to go to File, Our Properties. We're going to go to the Summary tab, and where it says Author, you're going to put your name there. So you'll take out whatever there on this student ID number or login, whatever it is, and you'll change that to your name. Then we'll hit Close. All right, so then that's pretty much it. So if you double click on your roller wheel, it'll zoom it out, and then you're going to export it. So we're going to export, then we're going to do PDF. And unfortunately, it doesn't really have a setup to it. So we can't, I don't know if we can do a page setup. Normally that's something that we can usually do, but normally exporting it as PDF, it'll do a setup automatically. So we're just going to leave it the way it is. And we're going to do base plate, and we're going to hit save. Now, this one doesn't blink like AutoCAD, so make sure you know where you're saving the file, the PDF, so you'll know how to retrieve it. For those who use Nutanix, you'll have to download the file, or if you log into your Google account, you can access it there from within Nutanix. But if you're using a desktop, make sure you know that it's going to either documents or downloads or wherever it is that you're saving your files. All right, and that's pretty much it. So you'll turn this in on Google Classroom or the PDF file. So don't turn in the Inventor file, IDW or IPT files. Don't turn those in on Google Classroom. They don't open online.